Rollo, speak at what does it take to be a high value man, an excellent man these days? I mean, this is your wheelhouse. And the guys, look, I assume everyone here is watching because they want to get faster, smarter, better, wealthier, cooler, sexier, if they're going to compete in the marketplace of business and the sexual marketplace. So speak to that.
I think we use the term chase a little bit too much these days. When we talk about chase, it makes me think of like little boys running after girls on the playground when they're like in third grade or something. Like, don't chase girls, chase excellence.
Pursue excellence.
Well, so what is excellence to you? I think is the first thing that guys need to understand. Like, what does that consist of? Does that mean you're making a lot of money? Does that mean you're going to be the CEO of a company? What does that look like to you? Because excellence in a lot, I mean, maybe you're the quarterback of a football team. That's excellence, So I think that's the first thing you need to define is what is excellence to you? What is, what are you passionate about? What do you make money doing? That's fine. What do they say? Like if you have a talent or something, it's one thing to have a talent. It's another thing to be able to develop that and to actually use that talent. And there's plenty, the world's, there's graveyards full of talented men who had all kinds of God-given gifts that never did anything with it, and so there's that aspect.
I think that's a literal quote. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but it's like you can be a genius, and if you don't know how to put that genius to work, or maybe it's being exploited, maybe that's your definition of how am I going to be quote unquote be excellent to each other. But
Bill and Ted.
I know.
You're really showing.
Hey, not quite so much. But I think that's number one. And then the other thing, of course, is I thought you were going to say money, muscles, and game, and then the whole package is frame. That's essentially in the men's self-improvement sphere, for lack of a better term. Those are the three dynamics that most guys either are really good in one of those, or they're deficient in another. And so maybe
you call
that's
it grossing out. In one or the
well,
other,
what happens is if somebody is really good with like, okay, I'm not a very good looking guy, so I'm going to gross out in making a whole lot of money.
Bill Gates, good
example, right?
Zuckerberg.
I'll never get laid, but I want to make a lot of money because I think that I lead with my wallet and it's sex as a transaction, but I'm okay with that because I'm Bill Gates. Look at me, right? So what happens is when guys are deficient in one or two of those areas, they tend to gross out in another area. So like really super rich men tend to have like some of the worst game you'll ever know, like Bezos, for example, Elon Musk also, for example. People, I called Elon Musk a beta on this very show at one point. People were like, oh my God, how can he possibly say that? He's the richest man in the world. And it's like, he's got to be alpha. I'm like, no, he grosses out in one of those areas, which is he makes a lot of money, right? And then there's the guys who are like the fitness guys. Well, at least I can be really hot and I can be really good looking. I go take off my shirt down at South Beach and women flock to me or whatever. Okay, but I'm dirt poor and I'm couch surfing on my buddy's couch at home, right? Or perhaps they gross out in just being like really super slick and super charming, right? That's the game aspect of things. Now, of course, the total package that when women say, I want a guy who's got money and he's got to love his mom and he's got to, it's this laundry list of prerequisites. And, he's got to be funny. He's got to be educated. He's got to be taller than me. It's like just this laundry list of things. Now, does that mean that if you don't have one of those things, you're just absolutely screwed? No, but what it's going to mean is that you're going to compensate in other ways. So when we see a guy who's driving this big giant monster truck out there, what's the first thing women say, or even guys will say?
Got a little dick.
He's got to be compensating for something. Exactly. And so we think of compensation.
That's why I drive
in
Uber,
those
by
terms.
the way, or only don't have it in a car. You can't even. I'm just in an Uber.
Which comes back, by the way, to competence and dominance, right? So. Think of money, muscles, and game and frame and all that good stuff in terms of dominance hierarchies as well, because there's guys who can still pull it off. Like I answer this question all the time. People say, well, Rollo, I live in a small village in, by the seaside in Chile, and I have to be a dominant, the real G, and I want to move to Miami and everything. Well, those are good aspirations, but the thing is like by environment and by wherever it is that you happen to be, perhaps in terms of like the context that you are in, maybe you are the top G, the top alpha guy of your village in Chile or Argentina or wherever it is that you happen to be. So by contextualizing it, you have to also think in terms of like, well, socioeconomically, where am I? Ethnicity, civilization-wise, which country do I live in? And I think one of the things that we sort of get lost in with respect to the red pill and the stuff that I do is that we tend to think of success as being the guy who lives on a super yacht and he's draped over a Lamborghini, and it's like that's the apex of being like the highest order guy, right? He chased excellence, right? So here's his excellence. He's got a McLaren, right? Well, if the red pill isn't for the guy who's driving a tractor in Oklahoma somewhere in the Midwest or whatever, if it's not for him, it can't be for anybody. And so what I've been trying to do is really sort of break things down so it doesn't matter where you are, what, sort of socioeconomic class you happen to be in. Like you could be salt of the earth kind of, heartland of America guy, and you can still benefit from what it is that I talk about, what George talks about, heck, whatever every Thursday out here. And if it's not accessible, if it can't be for the everyman, then it's like, what are we really doing? So when we talk about chasing excellence, that's why I always say, you gotta, what is excellence to you? Because excellence to me, sitting here in Miami with you guys, men of your caliber right now, is not going to be something that the average guy, watching this show is going to have any frame of reference for. So when we talk about excellence, it's got to be something within the context of something that you can actually achieve, that you're always about. And then the other part of that is people always say, well, chase excellence, don't chase women. Well, the problem is that if you chase excellence, and that's all to the exception of everything else. That's why I was mentioning, grossing out in one side. If you chase excellence to the exception of everything else, and everyone seems to think it's just making a lot of money or focusing on your passions or whatever like that. And it's, what is it? Ignore women, acquire currency. I've seen that meme before. Don't send it to me. Thank you very much. But the idea is that if you have all this stuff, if you have this money and everything, then the women will come and they'll all want to flock around you. I'm like, yeah. The ones who are like Lauren Sanchez, who wants to get with Jeff Bezos,
gold diggers.
Once the coast is clear, Mackenzie Bezos has their $33 billion in divorce because all you were doing was chasing excellence. You have no frame of reference and no idea that you're getting rolled by a predatory woman.
Well, let me ask you this, and then I want to get George's perspective. What is the perfect balance? Right, obviously, I want to be the richest guy ever, the best looking guy ever, and have the best game ever. But is there a certain formula?
I don't think it's because when we talk about like chase excellence to the exception of everything else, I don't think that necessarily is good advice. I think you need to be focused on your physique. You got to get your fat ass in the gym, because we already know that 75% of the American population is overweight. 35% of that, as far as men is concerned, are morbidly obese. Okay, so I think I feel pretty confident when I first start with get in the gym and get your body on point, get your physique on point. So I'm probably speaking at least to 75% of the audience that's out there right now.
Wow.
Okay? So that's number one. Number two is, so if I'm chasing excellence and all I'm thinking about is my physique, is my excellence, then to the exception of my money, to the exception of my I use the term game, but really what it is it's social skills and social intelligence, being able to carry on a conversation like we're doing here, not only with other men, but with women as well, understanding female nature, understanding men's nature, your own nature as a man as well. And then understanding the intersection between those two when we talk about intersexual dynamics, what makes you attractive, not just from your physique side of things, which is going to get you in the door. The arousal factor's got to be there. But once you get the date because you look good and just falls out of your mouth, then you're screwed, because you didn't focus on that section of the excellence trifecta right there. And if you can't pay for the date, and if you have to take her to Taco Bell and you can't date Coco Butte, and you go on a coffee date with her, or you go walking on the beach somewhere and she thinks you're a cheap ass, well, maybe you're not focusing on that side of excellence, which is the money side of it as well.
Yeah, I think what's probably easier to do when you're trying to figure out, how to pursue excellence is asking yourself, what is not pursuing excellence?
Right.
Let's just
back
start
into
there.
it. Reverse engineer what excellence
so,
is. I like that.
Yeah. So we're talking about defining pursuing excellence. Well, I can tell you what pursuing excellence is not, and that is chasing women. So we can just go ahead and cross that one off the list, and just kind of use some principles of deduction to determine, okay, well, this is what it means to me. And one thing I think that I would add is that you've got to, somewhere in there has to be something that you're passionate about. Because if you're not passionate about something, you can go to the gym, you can do all these things. I strongly suggest that, but it really helps if you use that as your core principle of motivation. So as an example, I happen to be very passionate about macroeconomics. So if I was just pursuing excellence just to get a date, I probably wouldn't choose macroeconomics.
Talk macroeconomics to me, baby. Yeah. Talk GDP to me, George Gammon.
Yeah, exactly. But what's fascinating about this is that in an effort just to talk about what I find fascinating, all the rest of it does come. Right? So now I go to all these live events in front of thousands of people, and I do this public speaking, where it's true, I'm not Motley Crue. I'm not Vince Neil or anything like that. But you do have...
We have the closest thing to it here with Rollo Tomasi right there. Okay.
Chris Jericho.
But you do have gals that come up that are maybe enamored, might even be a good way to say that.
Starstruck.
Yeah, because it's a demonstration of higher value. Is that the correct term?
Well, I think people out there are probably not going to know who I'm quoting, but I'm quoting Royce here. He says there are groupies for every male endeavor, except World of Warcraft.
Why? Because women respect leadership, they respect ambition, they respect success.
Yeah, that's right. And regardless of what field it's in. So I would start with a process of elimination. And then I would also try to make sure that the core principle there is something that you're really passionate about.
What else would you eliminate, George? Like, all right, so if you're like, don't chase women, all right, like, that's cool, all right, because then you're kind of like desperate and you're that guy. What else would you eliminate?
Well,
probably money.
Probably
money.
It ends up being
chasing money?
Yeah.
You would eliminate that?
Probably.
Why?
Because I think it's like trying to figure out which direction the price is going to go. I think if you, although that may be an objective, if it's not your priority and you focus on being an expert in one field, like, well, again, we'll use me as an example. By trying to focus on what I'm really passionate about, the money's going to come.
Right.
If you get to that top tier, the money, the women, the cars, the lifestyle, it'll come.